Have you ever felt it? A quiet hum of anxiety beneath the surface of your daily life. A feeling that you are running a race you never signed up for, scrolling through a life that isn't quite yours. You hold a universe of information in the palm of your hand, yet a profound sense of emptiness can settle in during the quiet moments. This feeling isn't an accident. It isn't a personal failing. It is the result of a war being waged on the most intimate territory imaginable, the inner landscape of your mind. This is not a war of bullets and bombs, but of notifications and narratives. It is a conflict fought in the silent, neural trenches of your brain, and its primary objective is the colonization of your consciousness. They, the architects of our digital world, don't want to control your body. They want to harvest your attention because they understand a fundamental truth. Whatever holds your attention holds your reality. And a population whose reality is fragmented into a million tiny, digital pieces is a population that can never awaken to its true, transcendent potential. The human brain, a marvel of evolution shaped over millennia to navigate the complexities of the natural world, is now being systematically rewired. It was designed for deep focus, for contemplating the stars, for discerning subtle truths in silence. Today, it is being trained for perpetual distraction. This is not hyperbole, it is neurobiology. Each notification, each infinitely scrolling feed is a precisely calibrated dose of dopamine, administered on a variable reward schedule, a technique borrowed directly from the design of casino slot machines. B.F. Skinner, the psychologist who pioneered this research, identified it as the most powerful method for creating compulsive behavior. And now, this method is the foundational business model of the modern internet. You are not the customer of these platforms. You are the product. Your attention is the raw material extracted and sold to the highest bidder. But the truth is even deeper. You are not just the product. You are the territory itself, a landscape to be occupied. This is the essence of fifth-generation warfare. Earlier generations of conflict fought over land, resources, and political ideologies. This new paradigm fights for the ownership of perception. Why conquer a nation when you can colonize the minds of its citizens? Why build prisons when you can construct a digital world so alluring that people voluntarily lock themselves inside, carrying the bars of their own cell in their pockets? Aldous Huxley foresaw this with chilling accuracy. He envisioned a prison without walls in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. A system of servitude where, through entertainment and consumption, the slaves would come to love their chains. Look around. How many of our beliefs, our outrage, our desires, were truly born from our own deep reflection? And how many were subtly implanted by the algorithms that now know our fears and desires better than we know them ourselves? They have created a world where emotional narratives are the new bullets and cognitive biases are the new chemical weapons. We are not just consuming information. We are being consumed by it, transformed into willing hosts for ideologies and agendas that are not our own. The greatest casualty in this war is not our time, but our capacity for transcendence. The great spiritual traditions of humanity, across all cultures and all ages, agree on one thing. Access to higher states of consciousness, to our inner divinity, requires silence. It requires sustained contemplation, deep presence, and the ability to quiet the ceaseless chatter of the mind. Now, ask yourself, does the digital environment you inhabit for hours each day foster this silence, or does it actively dismantle it? The system is not designed to be neutral. It is an architecture of distraction, and its ultimate, unspoken consequence is the prevention of a collective spiritual awakening. A spiritually conscious human being is sovereign, self-reliant, and ungovernable. They cannot be easily manipulated into endless consumption or tribal outrage. And that makes them a profound threat to a system that profits from our distraction and division. The first step in winning any war is to recognize that you are on a battlefield, to understand that the device in your hand is not just a tool, but a channel through which powerful forces are vying for control of your inner world. This is not a call to paranoia, but a call to awareness. It is the first act of defiance. Recognizing the invisible occupation of your mind is the first step toward reclaiming your mental and spiritual sovereignty. The choice, as it has always been, is yours. Will you remain a passive consumer of a reality designed for you by others? Or will you begin the sacred work of becoming the architect of your own soul? The time to decide is now. The static is growing louder, but beneath it, a deeper signal is waiting to be heard. Your own. To truly understand our predicament, we must see it not as a sudden crisis, but as the culmination of a long, historical trajectory. The nature of conflict has always evolved, mirroring our technological and psychological development. First-generation warfare was fought in lines and columns, with muskets and clear objectives. The enemy wore a different uniform. The battlefield was a physical place. Yet even then, the seeds of psychological control were present, as soldiers were marched to their deaths fueled by narratives of God and country. With the Industrial Revolution came second-generation warfare, the age of machine guns and massive firepower. World War I showed us a new kind of horror, where industrial efficiency was applied to mass slaughter. But alongside the trenches, another battlefield was opening up, the field of modern propaganda. Entire government departments were created for the sole purpose of manipulating the emotions of the masses, ensuring a steady supply of volunteers for the industrialized meat grinder. Third-generation warfare valued speed and maneuverability, epitomized by the German blitzkrieg. The lines blurred. War was no longer confined to distant fronts. Entire populations became targets. And with the rise of radio and cinema, for the first time in history, the emotional state of an entire nation could be synchronized in real time. A single voice could instill fear, courage, or hatred in millions simultaneously. Then came the fourth generation, the age of asymmetric warfare. Conventional armies found themselves bogged down in places like Vietnam and Afghanistan, fighting decentralized, ideologically driven forces. The conflict became shapeless, without clear fronts or central command. And in the shadows, the true innovation was taking shape. Television and early computing were building the infrastructure for the systematic capture of attention, beginning the process of dividing us into manageable, manipulable tribes. Each of these shifts was a step away from the physical and a step toward the psychological. But the leap from the fourth to the fifth generation was not a step, it was a quantum jump. The battlefield has now been fully internalized. The primary objective is no longer territory, but perception. The target is not the body, but the neural synapses of the brain. Algorithms have become more decisive than armies. Memes and hashtags are the new viral munitions, capable of piercing our critical defenses and implanting ideas that we mistake for our own. This new arsenal is invisible, omnipresent, and deeply personal. It operates 24/7 through the devices we voluntarily carry. These are not passive tools. They are active surveillance devices monitoring our habits, our conversations, our location, and most crucially, our emotional responses to the stimuli they present. This data is fed back into the system, refining the weapons, making the next psychological operation even more effective. And the ultimate goal of this entire, globe-spanning apparatus remains the same: to keep human consciousness fragmented, agitated, and spiritually dormant, to ensure that we never find the inner stillness required to ask the biggest questions. Who am I, really? What is my purpose? And what is the nature of this reality? Think about your own digital behavior, the unconscious reach for the phone, the hours that evaporate in a blur of unplanned content. This is not freedom of choice. It is meticulously engineered Pavlovian conditioning. It is the slow, systematic erosion of your will. The ancient battles ended with a formal surrender. This new war seeks a far deeper victory. It wants you to surrender your very consciousness, and to do so with a smile. To thank your captors, to defend your prison, and to voluntarily recruit others into the same state of blissful ignorance, all while the divine potential within you lies dormant, buried under an avalanche of calculated triviality. Understanding the nature of this conflict is the prerequisite for survival, because in the information age, ignorance is not just bliss, it is surrender. So, how do we begin this act of liberation? How do we reclaim the territory of our minds? It begins not with a violent revolution, but with a quiet, deliberate act of reconstruction. It requires building fortresses within our own consciousness, 7 specific bastions of defense that can protect our cognitive and spiritual sovereignty. The first fortress is that of the rigorous filter. We must become vigilant guardians at the gates of our minds. In an age of industrial-scale disinformation, passive consumption is an act of self-abandonment. We must cultivate an automatic internal reflex. When faced with any piece of information, a shocking headline, a viral video, a compelling narrative, we must immediately ask, cui bono? Who benefits? Who benefits financially, politically, or ideologically if I accept this as truth? And even more profoundly, does this information bring me closer to my spiritual core? Or does it pull me further away into states of fear, anger, and division? Practicing this consistently reveals the hidden architecture of manipulation. You begin to see the strings. The second fortress is the sanctuary of silence. Our brains are being starved of genuine quiet. The constant influx of external stimuli causes the neural pathways associated with deep thought, contemplation, and self-awareness to atrophy. The daily, non-negotiable practice of total disconnection is not a luxury. It is a neurological necessity. 1 hour a day. No phone, no music, no podcasts, no screens. In this restorative silence, the mind begins to heal. Intuition sharpens. Creativity resurfaces. The frantic noise of the system fades, and for the first time in a long time, you can hear the signal of your own soul. The people who resist this practice the most are often the ones who need it the most. Their minds so deeply colonized they have forgotten the feeling of their own inner peace. The third fortress is the curated circle. We are porous beings. Neuroplasticity means our brains are constantly being reshaped by our environment, and especially by the people with whom we surround ourselves. Emotional and cognitive states are contagious. We must therefore become ruthless curators of our social sphere. Do your connections encourage independent thought or tribal conformity? Do they inspire courage or feed fear? Do they elevate your spirit or drain your energy? This is not about elitism. It is about spiritual and neurological self-preservation. No bond of family or history justifies remaining voluntarily exposed to influences that systematically degrade your sovereignty. The fourth fortress is the cultivation of analog skills. This is a direct counteroffensive against digital dependence. Learning to grow food, to repair something with your hands, to navigate without a GPS, to practice a martial art. These are not just quaint hobbies. They are profound neurological recalibration exercises. Unlike digital interactions, which are designed for addiction, analog skills demand sustained concentration, tactile feedback, and autonomous problem-solving. They rebuild the very neural circuits that excessive screen time erodes. An individual who can focus long enough to cultivate a plant or learn a complex physical movement becomes neurobiologically resistant to the simplistic manipulations of the digital world. The fifth fortress is the immersion in deep classic works. The great texts that have survived centuries, classic literature, philosophy, sacred scriptures, contain a density of wisdom that is the polar opposite of the superficial content optimized for today's algorithms. Reading Dostoevsky, Marcus Aurelius, or the Stoics is not passive consumption. It is a cognitive workout. It trains the mind to handle moral ambiguity, to recognize complex patterns, and to sustain a long arc of thought. A mind nourished by the perennial wisdom of the ages develops an immunity to the fleeting, emotional contagions of the present moment. The sixth fortress is the authorship of your own narrative. Your identity is a story. It is the story you tell yourself about who you are, where you've come from, and where you are going. If you do not consciously write this story for yourself, the external world will happily write one for you. And that story will almost certainly cast you as an insecure, incomplete consumer in need of their products to be whole. This fortress is built through the concrete, written-down definition of your core values, your life's purpose, and your non-negotiable boundaries. This document becomes your personal constitution, an internal compass that guides you, regardless of the manipulative storms raging outside. And the seventh, final fortress is the conscious selection of your heroes. Humans are mimetic creatures. We become what we admire. The entertainment industry manufactures compelling but often corrosive archetypes: the anti-hero who normalizes moral decay, the narcissist who glamorizes manipulation. Admiring these figures is not a neutral act. It subliminally infiltrates our value systems. We must consciously choose our models of inspiration. Seek out stories, historical or contemporary, of individuals who embody integrity, resilience, courage, and wisdom. Emulate those who have successfully navigated the challenges of life without sacrificing their soul. These seven fortresses are not a checklist. They are a way of life. They are an integrated system for rebuilding your inner world, for transforming your consciousness from a colonized territory into a sovereign kingdom. This is the great work of our time. It is a revolution that begins in the quiet sanctuary of your own mind. The choice is stark: to inhabit the comfortable, meticulously designed prison of distraction, or to undertake the challenging, deeply rewarding work of reclaiming your mental and spiritual freedom. The window of opportunity is narrowing, as the technologies of manipulation grow exponentially more sophisticated. But your transcendent potential, your inner divinity, has been patiently waiting. It is time to awaken.